Hello and welcome. My name is Kate Marand. I'm a program manager at the Department of Small and Local Business Development here in Washington, D.C. for our Innovation and Equitable Development Division. Today, I am so excited to be continuing our Aspire and Dream elective series for 2024, specifically for D.C. resident-owned businesses who are participating in our Aspire and Dream programs. And through the elective series, we have D.C. entrepreneurs and business owners, certified business enterprises, folks who are very knowledgeable about business generally and then very knowledgeable about specific topics, who are coming to share their experiences, their lessons learned, and some of that expertise to help continue to grow this ecosystem. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to Earl Peak. Earl, you run a couple of different businesses, I think. I'm going to let you explain what those are. But I've known your name for a number of years for some of the great work you've been doing as a CBE in our community, and so excited to hear you talk today and share a little bit about debt and equity, because I know that is a topic that a lot of people are confused and concerned and sometimes scared about. So I'll
Right.
turn things over. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And I'm pleased to be invited to participate in this and make a presentation to this group. All businesses start small. They start in garages, they start in kitchen tables, they start sometimes in the gym or over coffee shops. And so I've seen them all. I'm pleased to meet you groups, although I can't see you. I know you all are there. I'd be happy to see your faces if possible. But I'm a deal guy. I'm a money guy. I've been doing this most of my adult life. And I always think it's good to tell people where you come from and what you do and all of that. So I'm a native Atlantan. I'm from Georgia. And unfortunately, I do not root for the Commanders or the Nationals or the Wizards. I am a Braves House Falcons fan, so don't throw all your spears at me. But I'm a native Atlantan. But I lived in the district now for about 20 years now. I moved up here in 2000, actually about 15 years. Moved in 2008. And my background that I'll tell you about in a moment has all been all about finance, all about accounting, all about deal making. And so I'll jump right into it. By trade, I'm a CPA. I'm licensed in the district in a lot of jurisdictions, including Georgia. And I went to undergrad at Wilberforce University in Ohio. I'm currently in law school right now, so I'll be a little bit of a combo and a lawyer sometime in the next year and a half or so. But I love doing finance. I love doing deals. The earliest part of my career was at a firm called Invest Atlanta. So you can look up at investatlanta.com. They're sort of equivalent to a number of agencies like Disby in Atlanta that has loan pools that do small business loans from 5,000 up to several million. Invest Atlanta at one time was the Small Business Administration, the SBA's local certified development company that did SBA 504 loans, which are long-term fixed asset loans. We'll talk a little bit about that in here. I left Atlanta and I came to DC. Many of you may have heard of Industrial Bank. They just celebrated the 90th anniversary. I came up there as a VP, a vice president in commercial banking. Worked very closely with the Mitchell family. They're a long stay firm, and I worked out of 11th and U Street office as a commercial lender and a banker. I left there and went over to BB&T, which is now Truist, and I worked at Truist Bank in the same capacity before I went to the United States Treasury, the largest financial institution in the world. And I was an appointee in the Obama administration at the U.S. Treasury, which many of you are, in the D.C. area know that's over right next to the White House. And there was a senior policy advisor that sat on a lot of committees that deployed a lot of money. And so I do that through Peak LLC, which is a CPA firm, but also a firm called Diamond Ventures. And we can share web addresses a little bit later, but it's dvfcap.com. But in my career and with our partners, we've deployed more than 6.5 billion and done loans as small as 5,000 and as much as 200 million. So it's all over the place. So we've done both equity investing and we have done direct loans. I'm more than what you would call a packager. I've been a person that signed wire transfers. I've voted on loans. I've approved them. I've done equity investments and managed money for a lot of folks, as well as many of the folks on the team. And so, what you're going to get the benefit of is having probably talked to 10 to 15,000 businesses of all sizes, and everybody has a dream and everybody can accomplish it. And hopefully through this dialogue, and hopefully there'll be a Q&A at the end that I can tell you all about it. So that's a little bit about me. This could be interactive. However, DSLBD wants to chime in if there are questions and all that, but I'll keep going. So that's my background. In terms of access to capital, which is why we're here, and I learned a little bit about what you all are doing with PrEP and returning citizens and other types of what we call cohorts, is that we're doing a lot in that area. I will say that for a while, we used to work with the Georgetown Pivot Program and talking about accounting and talking about financing to returning citizens that were going through the cohorts there. We helped PepCo, which many of us pay our power bills through PepCo. They established a racial justice and equity fund during COVID. It was a $36 million fund. I'll talk about that. And then we also were an advisor to and originated funds for LISC, the local LISC, Local Initiative Support Corporation, LISC.org, LISC. And LISC has a Black Economic Development Fund, and it also has a Entrepreneurs of Color Fund. These are funds that have hundreds of millions of dollars that came about, unfortunately, during the George Floyd crisis, but they can make impact and do all those things. And so right now I'm going to run down different pockets of money, and I can't see you. I don't know what you look like. I don't know when somebody says, hey, wait a minute, stop, go back and all of that. So I'll talk for about 15 minutes and then we'll open it up for questions. And I feel we can learn a whole lot by that way as well. So let's start with what I just talked about. First of all, let's talk about public sector money. Um, in the district right now, there is PepCo created a $36 million racial justice and equity fund. I think the smallest one they'll do is about 25,000, as much as they'll put as much as a half a million, 500,000, and that money can be used for businesses and other types of activities. It's run right now by a firm called Rock Creek. Our role when we set it up, it got 5 million from Pepco, 5 million from Baltimore Gas and Electric, BG&E, and all of the various subsidiaries of Pepco to come up with this 36 million, including the Pepco Foundation. And it's still an active fund today with what we call in the business dry powder, which means they have money to lend, money to invest, and that would be a portal for capital for what you all are. I don't quite know who's on the call or who will even see this. So I don't know the census of, we need 20,000, 25,000, 50 or 100,000. So I'll just talk in general terms here. So one source of money is the PepCo Fund. I think they've renamed it as not no longer the Racial Justice and Equity Fund, but in a follow-up call, or I'll send some information to the program moderator that can go out to you all. So that's one source of money. Another source of money that we actually under contract to, we originate capital for, is called the LISC Entrepreneurs of Color Fund. That is $100 million fund for people of color, not just Black, but also Asian, Hispanic, Latinos, Indians, and other people of color. And Washington, D.C. is one of their target areas. We've closed some loans there with them. I think the smallest we've done was like $1 million for electrical contractors. We've done companies that do veterinarian services for pets, of course, and other types of activities, and restaurants and food. And so that's Entrepreneurs of Color Fund, EOLCF, I think is the acronym. LISC also has a Black Economic Development Fund. It was a $250 million fund that did anywhere from 1 to 10 million that will go into real estate development as well as businesses. And so we would take the underwriting and do all that. And we've closed financings there as well. One thing that you all should be aware of is a program that started when I was at the U.S. Treasury. It's called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSBCI. Sorry, guys, I can't turn off all these notifications coming through my phone and places like that. So I'm sorry you hear all the blinking and hearing. But the program is called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, SSBCI. If you Google that, it'll pop up. When I was at the U.S. Treasury under President Obama, every state got capital from it. DC got 13 million, and they created a program called the Capital Access Program and Loan Participation Programs. The Capital Access Program is one where you would go out and get a loan from a bank or another institution, and you may not have the capital. So it's a collateral thing. So what the DC government will do is put up cash collateral to support you getting a loan, because unfortunately, through generations of discrimination and prejudice, many people of color don't have access to collateral. They don't have land, or may not have a home, or other types of things that help them secure loans. And so through this collateral support program that's run by DISB, then that is a program that had 13 million for that purpose, and about 5 or 6 banks participate in it. Again, as I understand more about who's on the call, what their needs are, I can say, well, this is a pocket of money to go for, or if you got this issue, this is what you do. Most recently, the United States passed that program was wildly successful. It was 1.5 billion that went out to all of the states of America, and it was allocated based on the size. So you can imagine California, New York, or Texas got a big chunk of that money. It was increased to 10 billion, and the District of Columbia got, I believe, about 176 million of this most recent bill. So there's a lot of money out there for collateral support. Hey, I can't guarantee the loan. I don't know how to do it. My credit's not as good as it should be, or my parents don't have a lot of collateral. That's where you go to Disney for those type of activities and actions. They also have a loan participation program that allows them to match other lenders to put more capital together. Again, depending on the sizing of the amount of money that you need, then it could affect those things. So we've covered Pepco, we've covered LISC, we just talked about the District of Columbia with the Disney program. Let's talk about something bigger. There are a number of venture capital funds. This is risk money, this is equity, and it can be as small as 25, 50, 100,000. It can be up to several million. But that's venture capital is a source of money that comes into a venture that has an opportunity to take off. Imagine Facebook or Uber or Lyft, some of these firms now, they start off getting venture capital, and there's a whole discussion that goes about where does venture capital come from. I won't try to do it in this particular call, but there's venture capital money in the DMV and even in the district that is designed for fast growing companies, big ideas that can go from 100,000 to 10 million in 5 years, things like that. And so there's a whole conversation to have about your idea, what kind of traction it's got, what it can be, what can it revolutionize, things of that sort. So that's the venture capital side and the private equity side. Another one that I encourage a lot of you all to think about is to buy a company. Sometimes it's hard to be a startup because you have to create so many things. You got to create an entity, an organization, a platform, sales channels. You have to hire lawyers and accountants and all of that. Well, sometimes it's easy just to buy a business. And so a lot of what our firm does is take entrepreneurs with skill sets, help them acquire the capital to buy a company. I mean, I literally just got I get these leads all the time about, do you know someone that wants to buy this company, that company, and don't be intimidated by the number, whether it's a few 100,000 or several million. The thing that a established company has that you may or may not have is a history. It has financial statements, it has a financial history, it has customers, it has contracts, it has a location, it has people. So these are good opportunities for you to buy. And right now in America, there's something called the silver tsunami. Imagine a tsunami is like waves running up and washing a place away from a hurricane. Right now, there's a lot of people retiring from work, retiring from the companies. They want to sell them, and they're looking for an event to be able to get out of doing those things. And so those opportunities to buy a company. So do not sleep on the fact that you can probably buy a company and buy your way into being an entrepreneur. Another source of money is called SBIC, Small Business Investment Company, SBIC. We formed an SBIC. That's one of the main reasons I came to DC. Our company, Diamond Ventures, formed an SBIC, but it's the government's version of venture capital. That part I was just talking to you about, Uber, Lyft, and all those things. Well, SBICs raise money from the private sector, investors, banks, pension funds, and then the United States matches it 3 to 1, and you can get up to 150 million there. Well, you want to be aware of SBICs because they can be equity money into the acquisition of a company, or they can sponsor your business as it grows faster and more and higher. And so those are some of the opportunities there. And then I talk about SBA, Small Business Administration. I know some people say the SBA doesn't lend money, they don't care about us, they won't do things, but the SBA can be an excellent source of capital to guarantee your debt and do things of that sort. There's something called the 7A. That 7A is an Apple program. The 7A program is a guarantee program where a bank will make you a loan. They may not think everything is in place with you. Then they go to the SBA and get a guarantee of that. You probably not doing a good job on that loan and making sure that the bank more comfortably will make the loan. So a lot of this stuff is like alphabet soup. Like, where do you get the equity from? Where do you get the debt from? What do you do if there's a collateral shortfall? What do you do if you got credit issues? How do you buy a company and all of that? And so be more than happy to come back, but I can pause right now. because I can work best from factual circumstances. You could ask me anything. I won't say I know everything, but I will say that in my life, I probably heard 10,000 pitches, and that's no joke. And not that, but we've actually funded companies. So we know what works, what doesn't work. It makes sense. So to the extent that you want to talk to, I'll let the moderator, if there are any questions, examples, or different ways that I can talk more about this to be informative to the group. So I'll pause right here and see if there's anything that I can share.
Earl, thank you so much for all of that. There was one question. Before I read that question, I think because you are interested in being able to see folks if they want to come on camera, we've got a small group, so I'm going to go ahead and make everyone panelists. So as I do that, folks can then turn their camera on if you're in a place to do so. I know not everyone is, but also as that's happening, definitely feel free to raise your hand if you have a question. Definitely feel free to drop that question in the chat. The question from before was about one of the programs that you were referencing, and people were trying to figure out how do they know if they qualify. And I think that was for the PEPCO funding. How would they know if they qualified for the PEPCO funding?
So we were fortunate to put that program together for Pepco. We were actually hired to design the program and do it. The best way that I can describe if you're eligible for it would be to look at the business and see if you have financial statements. If you don't have financial statements, maybe tax returns, and look at how much cash you need. And I can easily, since this is a small group, I'd be more than happy if you all route the questions through the panelists to say, my income was X in 22 or 23, and it's looking like this in 24. And I can tell you what the cash flow needs would be. The amounts that they will lend, I probably don't think they'll do less than 50,000. I know they won't do more than $1 million, but they're designed to lend to residents of the areas where the money comes from. So in this case, Pepco, if you were in Prince George. I think this is only a DC crowd, if I'm not mistaken. But to show that you're eligible, the main things you probably heard over and over again about the 5 C's of credit. You want to talk about the collateral, what kind of collateral you could put up, what the business is doing in terms of its cash flow. Then you want to talk about the management team and things of that sort. So the more specifics you give me, the more I can tell you what it is, and then I can put you in direct contact with the fund manager. But I always like to make sure that when people call me, you should be ready, 60 days ready for getting the money. Because I'm not the talk to the guy, give me advice guy. I'm the guy you talk to when you're ready to get some money. And that's the same thing I do with these relationships. So I can help you all prep. I don't know, this will probably be on the house, so to speak. But say, okay, guys, I can ask you a series of questions and say, get these things together, and then you're ready. But I'm hoping that's a general but a specific answer to the question of being eligible. But all businesses, cash pays bills. So if you got cash flow, I can tell you what it is. I know some folks don't like to talk about their business in the public domain, but the multiplier we use is just take your monthly cash flow and multiply it times 1.5, and then do that times 12, and that'll tell you kind of about how much you should be eligible to borrow. Come on, I'm not that smart. Come on, Millie Spears, Cheryl Stringfellow. I can't see the young lady's name with the brown reddish hair. Sparkle, Miss Sparkle, Miss Camera, Mr. Johnson. Ask me anything. Don't be afraid. This is your time.
Do you know any companies like with free grants, like pretty much like the Dream Pitch program?
Um,
Anything similar to that where we can get free
Interesting that you
grants?
asked that. I didn't talk about this here, but I will share it. We are working informally with the United States Department of Commerce because of all the grant money, all of the money that comes from all these bills you hear. I always tell people it doesn't make any sense to talk to folks about billions of dollars here and trillions being signed here because um, nobody can connect to that. It's like, what does this mean for me on U Street? Or what does this mean for me in Ward 8? And so right now, uh, we're working. So there's grants. There will be grants. There will be money, but it'll be mostly for AI, artificial intelligence, math, chips, and all of that. But you got to think about the services that support them, where you need to help people keep their facilities clean and things of that sort. So um, the grants will come from the CHIPS Act. If you look at the CHIPS Act, the grants will come from the Infrastructure Act. We won't have a lot of time to do it here, but I will have something that I can share with you all in a couple of weeks that will tell you when you're looking at things in the post or you see it online about, the president, the Biden Harris signed this and signed that. I mean, what does it mean for you as a small business? That's the only thing that really cares. That's the only thing that really should matter. And it's a little bit, we won't be able to fit it in today, but I will give you my word and my commitment that I will give you all a roadmap to understand that at the level you are. And I don't know what level you all are, but I don't think anybody's on here trying to borrow 50 million, get a $50 million grant right now.
Free? Free grant.
Mhm.
Okay, so how do we get in touch with you if we needed your assistance?
Well, my email is epeak@dvfcap. I don't know. I don't want to fall out of line with how they do the protocol here. I just gave y'all my email, but I will let DSL BDC put us together. But the firm is, my email is epeak@dvfcap.com. And I just want to follow the protocols of how they move you through the cohort and everything they're doing there. But that's how you can reach me.
Okay.
But please, because I get spammed a lot, if you send me an email, put in the subject line DSL BDC or I was on this call with you or something, because sometimes I look at it, if it don't look right, I hit delete. And I'm sure you all do it too, because people always try to steal your bank account records. There's data leaks, and I'm like, I don't know if
Right.
this is real. So I always tell people, put in the subject line how we met or whatever it is, so that I can open it up and talk to you about it. Mhm.
All right, thank you.
What about
Hi.
you, Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. You about to
Oh,
say something?
yes, actually, I had a question. I am one of the people that did the Dream Pitch program, and the business is going well. I can see what my capital is looking like for the year because now we're headed towards fourth quarter.
Mhm.
So what would be the next steps that I would take to grow? Like I have a couple things in mind that I want to put in place, and it's just finding the capital and figuring out if I'm in position to do so. So what would be the steps to
What kind?
know if I'm in position or not, or what extra steps do I need to take?
Well, I'm like a doctor. I start asking a bunch of questions, but I don't want you to tell me your private information. Tell me this. What industry is your business in?
So I am a balloon. I do balloon artistry.
Okay.
Um, so I do basically event planning and balloon artistry. So I'm the person that shows up on the scene and do the balloon arches and things like that. What I've learned is that now I can do my own balloons and kind of white label them, which is creates another retail portion for me, and that's the portion that I want to work on, as well as doing it kind of like an e-commerce website, same day delivery,
All right.
because it's something that the my market doesn't have right now.
So my immediate advice to say, what do we do to go to the next level? I would work on some distribution relationships with like Giant or Safeway, because I know they got balloons and all of that,
Hmm.
and try to get, even if you get it on consignment, but preferably a purchase order that you can produce so many brands for them, because that you can turn contracts into money, and that can be backed both by Disby and by banks, because the contract from a customer, what we call a AAA customer, somebody who will pay you in 30 or 60 days, is how you can finance your business, and then you can get money to get the production of the goods and then sell them and then collect on it. It's just a little cycle. I'm sure you figure that out. But I would say now that you have a product, you have a presence, and you got a price point, I mean, you're ready to expand it out there, and don't be afraid about a Giant says, I want to give you 10 or 15 stores. Can you do it? Because you now have a supply chain, which is, I guess you buy the balloon somewhere. I don't know what artistry is. I don't know if you draw them on or whatever, but you figured it out. That's the number one thing, and I would definitely encourage you to think about making your pitch to the procurement offices at these stores, or even asking the banker to tell you how to do it. But you got a product and an opportunity. You got cash flow, even if it's $100 a week. Because what we do in this business, we say you may have $100 a week here, but you may get a giant 10 stores, and if the stores are 200,000, then that's $2,000 a week, and then it's 8,000 a month, and then that's cash flow, and then that will support a $25,000 loan and all of that. So it's math. But yeah, I'm glad. Congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Mhm. What about you, Mr. Johnson? What do you do?
Hello, Mr. Peak. Thank you for everything you're sharing. We are a commercial cleaning company. We also collect medical waste.
Mhm.
And currently we are pushing the medical waste portion of the company as far as removing medical waste from any organization that generates it, dental offices, urgent care facilities, hospitals. So that's where most of our focus is now. We've been in business since 2008.
Wonderful. So the district is pushing greatly the green grants and
Yes.
green economy and all of that. There's a lot of webinars coming out. I get them, our firm's the CB, so we see them. It's just not a NASCO. I'm a finance guy, so I don't know anything about that, but it seems to be a perfect fit for you to get grant funding to deal with that and take it to another level, even getting grease from restaurants. And how do you clean it and then not refurbish it? What do you want to do when you what is it when you take the grease and you make it, you clean it and you can use it?
Recycle?
Recycle. Thank you. So you do that. But I would definitely look into CBE green grants. There's a lot of counseling there. And I think DSL BDC, this be one of them, is doing that. But that would be something that you should look into that will supplement your business and give you a new avenue for revenue.
Thank you.
Mhm. Mr. and Mrs. Nelson, Stringfellow, talk to me. Get it out of me. Squeeze some of this knowledge out of me so I can help you out.
Um, how you doing, Mr. Pete?
Hey.
Um, Nice to speak with you. I appreciate you for coming on the call and giving us all of this information that all of us can direly use. Um, I'm a federal consultant, well, aspiring federal consultant. As of now, I do company startup and I do credit repair and I do credit building as well. Uh, the main thing that falls under the umbrella of financial literacy for me. So my why is to be able to create and sustainable equitable change amongst the privatized area that I live in. I live in Ward 8 and amongst many other areas in the urban cities where they have less fortunate individuals. So me, myself, I came across this program. Somebody had actually informed me about this program because they were a returning citizen that started their company and I assisted him on starting his company and getting him some money and putting some things in motion for him. So he said, "Hey, somebody put me in position for this, and this I'm sure can help you because we're in the same area, and I know you can use the money that they offer with the stipends." So I got into this, and it's been tremendously beneficial for me. So for you to be who you are, again, like the Carrie Ann, if I'm not mistaken, early on, very strong financial literacy, financial literate speakers, and I love having this amongst this my cohorts and the entire program. My question to you is, I have been working on my credit and I have my business credit established as well. Question is, what is because I've asked Kate and many other people like Tony and Michelle, Tamika, different places and people, CDFIs to be able to go communicate with, to be able to get funding and things of that nature. Based on what I've told you, what would be the best place for me to go to be able to procure another grant, such as something like this? Because this only wasn't the the money is the money. It can only go as far as it can go, but your net worth is your network, and they have established a place where you can expand your network and be able to feel more comfortable because you have people you can reach out to and touch and be able to actually hear from and not just go online and hear some generic passage that somebody put on Wikipedia or whatever, or YouTube or whatever. Everybody's trying to get you and get some money up out of you. So from one person to another, where would you advise me to go, or what grant programs, other grant programs that I could get involved in?
What immediately comes to mind is an entity called the Washington Area Community Investment Fund, WACIF, WACIF. That would be a place that both has grants and also what I have what they call soft loans. You mentioned something, and I don't know if you were saying that you're in the middle of credit repair of yourself or another. I cut my teeth learning how to finance businesses working for an economic development agency, which means that folks came in, they didn't have a 700 credit score, they didn't have an 800 credit score. Sometimes it was a 620, sometimes it was a 590. And and so our credit standard says that bad credit wasn't necessarily a reason to decline you. I would say you can have bad credit, just have a reason for it, other than I just don't like paying my bills. It could be a divorce, it could have been hospital bills, it could have been that you didn't have the literacy to understand how to manage it, or you got credit cards when you was in college, you didn't know what you were doing. And now you've taken corrective measures to do it. But the answer to your question is the first thing that comes to mind is Wakefield. There's probably others out there, but I think they do a fair amount with this being the city and they do have grant programs. I've seen somebody announce something recently about $5,000 or $10,000 grants that they have there. Definitely look up WACIF, and I think it's .org. Yeah.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you so much. Actually, this correlates. This is how you know when you're in the right place. It correlates with exactly what Kate and those guys were teaching us. Because if I'm not mistaken, Kate, Wakefield definitely came up earlier in this program. And now speaking with you, it's a more kind of re-solidifying the fact that I need to revisit what was taught here, and I have a little more of a pinpoint idea of where to put my energy into. So thank you, Mr. Pete.
Absolutely. Thank you. I know we're getting close to 5, so I want to respect you all's time, but I'm not trying to get off the phone, not the phone, off the presentation, but um, any questions, any scenarios you're trying to think through, or Ms. Moderator, if there's a certain way that you want to guide this plane?
Yeah, can I ask a question maybe for the group? And I think it's a space that we see a lot of folks. I don't know, it might be different for everyone who is on the line here. Investment and equity seem very far away, maybe not very real, like just sort of they don't necessarily know a lot of folks who are receiving equity investment. I know I will just say we in the city are less strong at being able to advise people on how to prepare for equity, and maybe just really big picture, how
So
folks might want to think about, do I want to pursue equity? What does that really mean, other than the fact that someone is invested?
yeah. So I like the idea of getting equity, but I know there's a lot of sharks out here, and especially if you have a very promising business and it's growing rapidly, you get into this issue called valuation. What is the company worth? And there's different ways that people value the company. And I was on with somebody earlier today that has technology that deals with loudspeakers. Got the patent, has invested the money and all of that, sees the market, knows it, is passionate. But I think if they go out now, they're not as prepared, and people will eat you alive. And so I always tell entrepreneurs, try to build your base, get your advisors in place, make sure you get some good advice. Because when you start talking to venture capitalists and private equity people, they're always talking about control and buyout. And it's okay to have an exit. It's okay to be bought out and all that. But early on, you're not sophisticated enough to talk to someone about that. And the numbers are too small. When you're talking about venture capital and private equity, you're talking about 500 to a million to several million. And I think a lot of opportunities, particularly with what I think I'm beginning to get is a sense of who's on the call with me or in this cohort, is that there's what I call soft money. There's grant money. Then there's flexible loans that have lower interest rates, is more designed for community impact versus going to a bank saying, pay me on, I'll get the loan on day one. I got to start paying it back on 30 days later. And so I always try to, use debt skillfully. But when you start talking about equity and all of that, it's going to be a lot more focus on systems. It's going to be a lot more focus on managerial skills. It's going to be a lot more focus on customers. And I would just say, season yourself before you go into that. It's there, it's for you, but it's about timing. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs hear this word, fancy word, venture capital and private equity, when you're not talking their language yet, and then they can only steal from you. And this is from somebody who's in the business who does that. I talk to buyout people all day long, especially if you're passionate about what you do and you want to build it, make a legacy in the community, things like that. So they don't care about all that. They're gonna take your idea and do something else with it.
I see a lot of nodding at that.
I'm gonna give you the straight dope. You didn't bring me on here to not, the preacher says
Yeah.
tell the truth. You got
Anyone
a
else?
question, Miss Camera? Is it Camera?
Yes,
Camara. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
Camara.
Camara.
My question is about licensing. So do you know, can you elaborate a little bit about licensing, like um any type of software models or anything like that?
Licensing of give me a little bit more.
Like say for instance, like if I want to license to an entity my software,
The
my
number one thing I would say, make sure you have an intellectual property lawyer to protect your idea before you license it.
yeah, I do.
Uh,
Mhm.
and uh, and what kind of protections do you have? Is it patented or copyrighted, or you
Yes.
copyright code, or
That's
are you copyrighting a product?
product,
I mean,
not the
trademark
code.
a product. Okay.
Hmm. The
Um, there are
models.
different models.
Right.
Tell you a story. Early in my life, I wasn't even doing financing. Um, I took a break from this and I licensed a board game like Trivia Pursuit, Monopoly. For those of you who have ever played board games, I know everybody now is electronic and Twitch games, but there was a game called Travel Buff that we had, and it was a blend between Trivia Pursuit and Monopoly, which like the Monopoly you see at McDonald's from time to time. And I didn't come up with the idea, didn't come up with the game, but I created a company and licensed it from the inventor, and then created the product and sold it into Kmart, Walmart. You see how far back it was. It was a Kmart back then. Kmart, Walmart, Target, and all of that. But usually in licensing agreements, you're paying a royalty, you have guaranteed minimums, and you have ceilings, and then you have to have parameters. A lot of people, unfortunately, get taken advantage of in license agreements because they lack audit provisions and accounting. I mean, the accounting part of me says you have to be able to follow a transaction from the cradle to the grave. You see it in music a lot, where people have music that's stolen from them, or they don't get the royalty checks and things of that sort. And so, other than having the licensing protections and having a reasonable revenue royalty rate, please make sure you have very stringent accounting of the proceeds and the product, and you have mechanisms in place to audit the outcome, because there's a lot of games played with units being produced, where they're produced, how they account for them, and what is a unit, and how do you figure out channel sales and all of that. So whatever it is you got, there's a great mental. I was thinking about, okay, it's a great idea, but how do I make sure that I can account for it in the licensing agreement? And exclusivity has value. If somebody wants an exclusive, they got to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And
All
pretty much
right.
there.
Thank you.
What's the product, by the way? Since it's tell us, what is your invention?
I'm pitching lottery games.
A
So I
what?
create lottery games.
Lottery games. Okay.
Yeah. To license to lottery entities and starting here in DC, to help um, build revenue for our communities and also to put more income into the communities pockets to just try to help them, with their bills, whatever they're lacking, and to cut back on a lot of the crime that we had, because a lot of guys, that's not fortunate enough to get jobs, and they turn to violence, robbery, so if there's a better way that they can see, as a variety of games that they can probably purchase with $2 and win. If they win 50,000, 100,000, even a million, I'm pretty sure they're not going to think about going out robbing somebody, because they already have some money in their pocket that can do something positive with it, such as probably trying to create their own business. So it's a lot of ways that we can help the homelessness, the people that's out there that's homeless. And they, when they're homeless, they don't have any income. We all see they out there begging. But if they take that dollar that I give them and go play, and they win, then hey, that's a way, they means that they can be able to purchase a home, or some way they can. So it's just my way of trying to get back to the community, and just build the people dignity, and just help them become more self-sufficient. So I created 18 lot was more than 18, but right now I just have patent 18. I'm trying to patent all 18 of them. And I do have an intellectual property lawyer that I'm working with here in DC. I've been working closely with DC Lottery, and they've been giving me guidance throughout my process. I started, but first of all, I must give credit to Kate, because Kate was the first one who I spoke with in regarding this, and she gave me, some guidance as well back during COVID time. So
Yeah.
it's just my way of just trying to get back to and help build the revenue that we could put back into the community to help the resources that we do have.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Hmm.
Thank you.
And then hopefully, one more thing, hopefully I can be able to license throughout the United States.
Just protect the idea. Thank you, Miss Camera.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions from the group? If not, I will ask Earl one last question, but any questions that we have missed? Okay. Earl, you somewhat spoke to this, but I'm going to ask it again. Just sort of one of the things that we've talked with a lot of entrepreneurs about in the programs that we have had throughout the summer, and folks are in different stages. Some folks have been in business for a long time, and some folks are very much starting out right now. But we talk a lot about why, like what is someone's individual business why are they, how, and that why sort of being a guiding sort of North Star as they decide to change things and do different things. I don't know if you could either share your why, or if not share your why, share how you think about that concept being important to business, what that means for you.
Oh, like what is their why?
Yeah, so the why being important, or if you wanted to share, you could share your why, but sort of addressing it. And I think that totally brought up a question for
I,
someone.
I believe the why has to be something you're passionate about, something that you really care about. My why happened when I came straight out of undergrad. I wanted to be a lawyer and a CPA, and I was driven to do both of them. And I did 2 years of law school, and then I went to be a CPA, and I was killing myself trying to do all of this. And then I wound up one day, my quick story was I was working at Invest Atlanta that I told you about earlier. And I went in as an accounting manager. I'd been working in public accounting, doing audits and all of that as a CPA. And they says, "Hey, we need help in loans." And my only rationale was I'm a CPA. I read financial statements. Lending and finance is all about loans and all that. But the first time I did a loan was about $30,000, and it was such a high for me. I mean, and I said, "This is it. This is what I want to do. I want to be a deal maker." And so I'm glad to have these credentials and all that. But God really blessed me in the area of finance. It comes really really easy to me, and it's just easy. It's just easy. So the why. You can do it for the money. That's a good motivation because the money pays bills, cash keeps businesses open. But do something that you're passionate about, that you really care about. That's what the why to me means. And when I talk to entrepreneurs, I ask them, what did you come up with this name for? Sometimes I named it after my kid, or it was a tragedy, and my mom. And then I look them in the eye and I try to figure out, why do you want to do this? Why do you care about it? What makes you really good about it? I ask very, very hard penetrating questions, and you get a lot of different answers. I almost died. I was an accident. I was inspired. God talked to me. I've heard it all. But the why should be something that you're passionate about and you believe in. Otherwise, the business won't work for you.
So appreciate that. I think we have one hand that went up. So we're gonna squeeze in one last question, and then I think we'll wrap. So
It wasn't really a question. I thought that you were asking people if they wanted to share their why. So I
okay,
was just going to share mine. That's all.
please do.
So the name of my business is Eclectic Design. I originally started as event planning, but what I learned and what I noticed is that the balloons portion is normally the focus point for most parties, and it brings people of all ages, all creeds, all race, from all places joy. And that's what I feel like our communities need. One of my biggest things is I actually did the We Aspire pitch program, which was for returning citizens. So I did do 2.5 years in the feds. And the program taught me about some of the things that we needed in our community, which is stores that we could actually go in and do our celebrations. There is no balloon stores in Washington, D.C. at all. They are all outside in Virginia or Maryland. And I think that our community should be able to go to their own people and be able to put together their own events and not feel stressed about it. It's a time to celebrate and it's a time to bring back joys into our community. So that is my why. I also want to be able to create internships for people that are inspired to be creative. Everyone says that you have to do IT or work for somebody else to create jobs, and that's definitely not true. So
That's a good story. You should pursue that from a retail standpoint. I won't take up much more time of the cohort, but I talked to a lot of entrepreneurs. I mean, God knows so many, and that was a good story. And I'm not buttering you up. I'm just a good story, real talk.
Well, I want to say thank you to everyone who joined us today. I want to say a really big thank you to Earl for coming and sharing experience and information. And we're going to go ahead and call it a wrap. And I hope that everyone has a great rest of your Wednesday.
Thank you very much. And all of you all have a great holiday weekend. Thank you. Good day to you. Bye-bye.